not part of the community.
Right where the four stops. That seems to be weird.
Thank you.
Push Bridget down. Above your accent. He walked outside and took a bad step there and sprained her ankle badly.
Thank you. Way it goes.
You don't have to pay a $3,000 assessment for every homeowner because the roads are good.
I guess we kind of gave that, you can count it, say you can stand up and tell that out, yes. I felt like we just, did you get told? I did. I didn't want to take credit for it. Those yelling profanity, I believe.
Just give us a moment to get the rest of the board members up here to face the firing squad. The homeowners.
Hey, I have an excuse.
What we're going to do now is we're going to move into, we have 4 people who signed up to ask specific questions or to speak, and we want to make sure we give them their time. And then beyond that, we'll open up the extra time that we've got planned this afternoon for anybody who just wants to throw out some questions. We'll do our very best to answer them. We'll also be taking notes. If we don't have the answer today, we're not going to try to just make it up as we go. We'll get it for you later. And also, Danielle will be taking any specific notes if there's something that she thinks maybe she can follow up on later. So the first person we've got signed up to speak to us today is Val. Is it Scherer?
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Yes.
Val, if you want to come on up.
Good job. Hey everybody, Valerie Scherer. First, I just want to give you this. Denise did a lot of work trying to put some pictures together and stuff for different things around the community, so I wanted to give that to you.
Okay.
Since she wanted to give it out. But the question I have was just specifically about the reserve study. I'm kind of surprised to hear that we haven't had one yet since the community's been around, so I kind of just wanted to throw that out as a question for, kind of why now, and then when are we possibly going to get the results back and have more information on what is going to go from there. Does that make sense? All right, that's my only question. Just kind of get into that a little bit.
All right. So to make sure I understand the question correctly, which this is, to make sure I understand this is the townhome maintenance things that we were talking about?
Yeah,
things
the
that we asked
list
townhome
of
committee to do?
things, yep, and it's pictures, so we didn't want to try to email it because it's actually like a lot of pictures, so it's on a flash drive for you, so it's easier, so you don't have to overload a computer. And there's some other, I guess, emails from people who didn't maybe have pictures, so.
You want to download that?
Denise put a lot of work into it, so I wanted to at least give it to y'all today.
Okay, and to explain to everybody what that is, we asked the townhome committee, there's maintenance issues at the townhomes that need to be done. Some of it's been neglected for a while just because Eastwood didn't care, Lennar is doing what they have to. There's things that we actually asked Spencer Kelly to do an assessment and go walk around. He's worked in construction for years, owns his own company in that area. So we asked him to do an assessment of the townhomes and to give us an idea of the things that he thinks that we need to go ahead and focus on right away. Things like caulking, any maintenance as far as paint, things like that. So we asked the townhome committee to take a good look at those items, to talk with people over there, and to see what maybe we didn't notice and what they thought we should do and what we should focus on. If we don't put the money into it now, will pay 10 times later. Anybody who owns a home or a car or anything, you guys understand you can't not do oil changes on your car because eventually you're going to need a new engine. So we're trying to put off the engine repair and just do the oil changes. So that was what we asked them to do, and thank you for bringing that to us. As far as the reserve study, it's an industry standard that it should be done. Sydney suggested it. It was brought to us by the financial committee saying, hey, you guys need to do this. I specifically, because it can be an expense of, what are we looking at, 4,000, something like that?
We budgeted 3,000.
We budgeted around $4,000, $3,000 to $4,000 of money, so it's a big chunk, obviously. But otherwise, we're kind of guessing. Everybody in here, to make it simple, because this is how I think about it, because like I said, I'm not a numbers guy. So everybody in here's got a car, and you know your car's going to last probably 10, 15 years, just depending on what kind of car you buy. So let's say you kind of hope it's going to make 10 years. You start planning for when you're going to get a next car, and all of a sudden your car breaks down, and you look in the bank account, and you've got $10 in your bank account. So now you have to go out and take a big loan to try to buy a new car, whereas if you'd been planning, you would have been in a better position. And that's kind of the way we are. There's actual industry knowledge out there where people look at it and they say, you can underfund your reserves. You can choose to do that as a board. You can say, hey, we're going to put less money in the reserve than we know we should put so that we can keep things low. And it's just a strategy that some boards will work on. And then you have the potential for an assessment that'll come up. The other thing you can do is you can take a look at it and you can say, let's overfund or let's fully fund our reserves. And you can put away, you know, we know that a roof is going to cost this much money, and we know that it's going to cost this much money in this many years. As you go up that scale, or I guess we reverse to you guys. As you go up the scale, every year that you get closer to that amount, or to that date, so for instance, let's say in 2025 we've got to replace a roof. Every year that we get closer to 2025 and we keep putting money aside, we get lower on our risk as far as needing a special assessment, and that's where we'd have to come to the homeowners and say we need $1,000 from everybody in the neighborhood or whatever. So that's what we want to kind of plan for. I think that's the strategy that our board would most likely want to go for. I would assume that's the strategy that our finance committee would tell us to take, is fully fund the reserves as best you can, build those up so that we can keep those risks of assessments low. It's better for us in a financial picture going forward as a neighborhood. If I was coming into a neighborhood and I know a little bit about an HOA, I've learned a little bit about it, I've read, and before I buy in this neighborhood, I'm going to ask the management company to let me know what the financial picture of the neighborhood looks like. So your house is on the market, I'm really interested in your house, call the management company, Danielle's really sweet and nice, she sends over the financial documents, and oh my gosh, you guys don't have anything in reserves, and you've got townhomes that are 15 years old. I'm not buying. There's no way. You'd be crazy to. Because you're not required as a homeowner to say, just to let you know, it's probably a special assessment coming in 2 years. But as a guy who reads a little bit of information on the internet, I know that there's a special assessment coming in a couple years. So it's important that we get a financial picture where we know where the reserves are going. We know how much we need to put aside. To answer your question as to why was a reserve study not done before, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that they didn't care. I mean, honestly. It was up to the board that was appointed by the declarant. Anytime you're reading the declarant and the CCRs or the bylaws, they're talking about the builder. The builder didn't care. I mean, they don't care about all that kind of stuff. They want to sell you the Mercedes at the Volkswagen price and not tell you about all the maintenance that's coming down the road, or the fact that you're going to have to pay more later on. You know, they put you on the lease price, knowing that when you go to buy it in a few years because you got dings on it and it's too much to give it back, your prices are going to go up. That's essentially what happened with our monies. A lot of times I'll hear from people, why are our dues so high? I know somebody who lives XYZ neighborhood, they have 10 times what we have and they don't pay as much. And I would need to see all of their financial documents, all of their land that they're responsible for to give you a good answer to that. So we're not able to always answer why somebody else pays more, but we know what we've got and we need to know what we need to put aside. So the reason for why now is because it's never been done before, and it's the smart, responsible thing to do. It's just absolutely the most responsible thing we can do. And then we need to set aside monies every year or every 2 years to have that just quickly updated to make sure that we're in the right place. So it's really just us as a board making a decision to make sure that we get the best information so we can make better decisions. And so later on, when somebody says, why are we putting this much money in reserves? Can't we just lower our dues? We can tell you why we can't lower our dues. Hopefully we're going to find out, excuse me, hopefully we're going to find out that we are putting plenty of money into reserves and that we're doing really great. There's also a potential that we'll find out that we're not doing so well and we need to do better. And we'll just let you know and we'll be able to give you a real good, solid answer on that. So that's why now in the reserves. That answer that?
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Touch a little bit what you say about people ask why so all the neighborhood has so many facilities, you know, like tennis court and all these, and we don't have it. That's because it's not the HOA that built out, that's the developer. When developer develop neighborhoods, they the one that put all that stuff, tennis court, playgrounds, fancy playgrounds. I can point you to Blakeney where my daughter lives, and these builders went in there, the developer, they put all kinds of things. But that's the developer that do that, not the HOA. Because once you come in there, you know, if there's no more land available for anything else, you know, to build a tennis court or to build a clubhouse and all that, we just can do it.
And that's what she's talking about there is anything with capital improvements. If we decide, for instance, as a neighborhood, 90% of the neighborhood comes up and says, hey, we want to have a tennis court, and we want to put it right there. And they point to the most perfect spot in the whole neighborhood, and everybody thinks it's the greatest idea to put a tennis court up. One of the things we've got to look at is where are we going to get the money for something like that. Things like that would probably come from special assessments. We might be able to set money aside, but we wouldn't go into our reserves for that kind of thing. A capital improvement is, the reserves, you know, they're set aside to fix things, to fix capital improvements, not to just build new stuff. So there's a windstorm and it blows all the shingles off the top of one of the townhomes, and we need to make sure that gets fixed now because insurance is dragging out for some reason. That's what we need to be able to do. Siding blowing off the side of the house. That's what the reserves are for. So that's what we're going to do is make sure that we've got enough money in reserves and that we're planning well for the future, because ultimately the value of all of our homes is based upon this agreement that we all made when we came together, whether anybody realized it or not. When you bought your home and you signed and said, yeah, I'm so excited, you signed 1 million papers, and one of them was the contract for the HOA. Everybody's value for our homes going future is based on the financial stability of everybody else in the room. So we want to do as much as we can to prepare for that so that if somebody gets into a bad spot and we fall behind in dues payments or something like that, it doesn't drag the whole neighborhood down. We want to be able as a neighborhood to support each other and keep each other going. If somebody falls behind their payments, if I'm not able to make my dues assessment for 2 years, and I'm doing everything I can and the board's working with me, we want to make sure that the rest of the neighborhood's there to help lift each other up. So that'll be part of what we're doing by getting that reserve steady. It's money well spent, essentially. Next up, Virginia. Poe?
You know better than that. Hey, I'm Virginia. I guess when we had the last meeting, I did pose y'all this question. You guys have done a great job, and a lot of people don't know, you basically run this board like a corporation, and the way it should be ran. But my question as a neighbor and friend and living in the community, July's coming. So, all this work that you guys have done, how do you plan on transitioning, letting the new neighbors, letting the new people know that your seats will probably be up for, you know, how is that transition going to look like? Because it could look smooth, it could look nightmarish, it could look, just in case, say for instance, we're in the middle of a pool argument or whatever it may be, how is that going to look come July? Or are you going to, a month before, let people know, you know, these things, because it could look horrible? So that's my only fear about, you know, the transition. If there's, you know, if somebody's seat's going to be open and you want to run again or whatever it may be, how does that look? Because, you know, half the neighborhood might want to keep you, the other half of the neighborhood might not want to keep you. It could be very horrible if we don't plan for it. So that's my question.
Okay. And to make sure that everybody understands, and make sure I'm understanding the question correctly, essentially, assuming we all dump and run on you,
Yes.
What's the plan to make sure that everybody else that comes in has a chance?
Thank you.
Or assuming that the neighborhood's decided we've done a horrible job, and they want to get rid of us, or a couple of us go out, how do we plan to transition over to the new board if there's a new board coming in, or even if we just replace a few members, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
First and foremost, if you like the work we're doing, then you need to make sure that when it comes time for a vote and we all run again, you need to make sure that you either come out or get a proxy form into somebody. We'll start letting you know early on, I would say a couple months before, hey, we're coming up. At that point, I would ask, as the president of which honestly, and I want to make sure I clarify, I've tried to clarify a lot of times, I run with the title of president of the association. A lot of times I stand up and I talk for the board or something like that, but it's unified from all of us. Each of these board members has the exact same power as anybody else. We don't one of us have more authority than the other. It's not my vote in the end or anything like that. So each board member is just as important as the other. And it's important if you want a board member to stay on, that you tell them, I want you to stay on. That's probably part of it. You know, if somebody on this board is getting ready to come off and you don't want them to leave, well then go and tell them. Let them know that you want them to stick around. Encourage them to stay. If you do know that somebody's going to leave the board, if we make that announcement and you know somebody who you'd like to run for that position, you need to get out there and let them know. You need to make sure that you take a vested interest in who's going to be on the board because, like she was pointing out, we run it like a corporation because it is a corporation. But we're very neighbor friendly, I think. We try really hard to make sure that we keep you guys involved and we keep everybody in the neighborhood informed. There's no requirement, Danielle can tell you, she's got more experience than anybody in the room. There's no requirement that we create a website. There's no requirement that we update that website with the content we have on there. There's no requirement that we produce a newsletter. Am I wrong? Okay. Next door? None of that. None of that has to be posted out. The only thing, we don't even have to tell you when the board meetings are necessarily. Board meetings will happen when board meetings will happen. If you want to know when a board meeting is, technically, you can just call over and find out. The onus is on the neighborhood to go to the management company and the board and say, what's going on with this or that? We don't like that. I don't want to be a part of a neighborhood like that where we don't know what's going on. So that's kind of our mentality, our basic little philosophy that we run on is keeping everybody informed. The more you know, yeah, it can be a little more of a pain sometimes because then everybody wants to kind of give their opinion, but that's good. We want your opinion. I don't know everything. I can't figure it out, and I've got to make a vote. So giving me your input is important. Another board may come in here. We could all get wiped out in the next board meeting. Maybe we all leave. Maybe somebody just votes us out. And you have a new board up here, and it's exactly what you'd say. What are they going to do? Certain things they're going to have to do. Hopefully, we can force them to do it. I know I'll be at a meeting screaming and yelling if they're not putting information out on a website. The last board did it. The policy's there. It's the way it's been done before. You should continue the same thing. And I would say, if we all leave for some reason or another, continue to hold a future board accountable. Continue to hold them to the same standards that we've set up. We've tried to build, and we're going to work with Danielle on policies, and we're going to actually try to start working on written policies. And those policies, they don't become a binding contract per se, but there's certainly a good standing for a legal argument later if the board president and his crew come in on the next group and they decide they're just going to do everything different. Well, there's a written policy in place that was always followed before. Why are you doing it different now? They can change those policies, but it's a little harder. So we're trying to put those policies in place. We're trying to make sure that there's kind of a precedent that's in place so that you can point to that and you can say, why have you not done what was always done before? The same thing going forward with any of our rules and regulations. We're actually in the middle of drafting a rules and regulations book. We were given 4 examples by Danielle. We've gone through, and what we're doing is basically trying to focus on what the CCRs say and put it into a little easier format where you can go, what kind of fence can I have? And you can flip through and you can read and you can say, okay, that's what kind of fence I can have. Or where am I allowed to park my car? Things like that. We're trying to work on putting those things into place, and if we put it in a written form, it makes it just a little harder for the next board to come in and just throw it all in the trash. So that's how we're trying to build towards, the future. My main goal when I decided, hey, I want to be on the board, was to try to make sure that we got the first year set up as good as possible and to make sure that a lot of information was out there. to make sure the precedent was in place that everybody stays informed. Having a meeting like this that wouldn't normally happen with the declarant, recording the meeting so that it can be placed on our website so that people from the neighborhood can go and watch it later. You know, things like that. We want to make sure we build these precedents up. So that was my goal, and just make sure that there was a lot of responsibility. Now, I've seen the exact same thing from every member up here. I don't think I'm saying anything different. Everybody just wants to make sure that we get things going in the right direction, and I think most of us plan on running again. I don't know. I won't be able to speak for everybody. I mean, things can change between now and then. We lost Virginia. We lost you because you started having other financial opportunities within your work, and you know, that may happen with any of us. But we'll do the best we can for you. And if you like what we're doing, encourage your board members to stay on. If you don't like what we're doing, tell us what we're doing wrong so that we can maybe fix it, because sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. I think a direct quote, right?
Got it.
So that might be one way to look at it. If you know somebody who's going to run for the board, though, prior to the July meeting, I'll encourage the board to make a general announcement of nominations so that we can put it out there. Everybody will have equal billing. If Eric has decided he wants to run for the board, good luck, Eric. If he decides he wants to run for the board, I want to make sure that he has just as much opportunity to stand up and say, hey, I'm Eric, I want to run for the board, I got a cool beard, and put his information out there. As Chris or myself, you know, I shouldn't get an opportunity to speak to everybody, and nobody else in the neighborhood gets to tell you who they are. So we'll do everything we can to make it fair and equal and even. We'll do everything we can to get the information out there and make sure that everybody's prepared. Does that pretty much answer it all? Does that give you a good setup? Very good. Yes.
Just from a pure technical perspective, we put so much stuff in place that we had to have an infrastructure to transition over. I think my main focus when I came on the board is that I just wanted to make sure that we had, like, you know, stuff in place to keep all of our documentation, and keep, you know, communication going. So day one when we started, like, we opened up our Google Mail account. We have Google Drive thanks to knowledge from, you know, Eric in the neighborhood. We built our website. We paid for hosting for 2 years. We bought all our domain names. Every conversation, every approval for anything we have it archived. Anything you send to us is archived, and it's in its own nice little folder. And I could sit down with somebody in a very short period of time and say, here's the logic behind how we structure all of our files, and here's where everything is on Google Drive, and here's our phone number that we want to start implementing next year with Google, so you can actually contact one of us via phone, right? Instead of Rob's personal phone number. So we have all these things in place, and we have a plan for our website. So if something happens, hey, here's the plan. You want to move forward with that plan? So it's all documented. So when we talk about we communicate with you, we communicate amongst ourselves, and we all know where everything is. So that would be transition, and it would be an easy transition. It would be a scatter of, let me find you my binder, right? It is all someplace in a nice, organized fashion. So.
Rob, I think between the management company, the budget, and the information distribution policy you guys have set up, unless a new board just totally decides to ignore all of that, I think a transition is already set. I'd be confident with that.
And if you all remember, that's what happened when we were elected. What Tim Petty says, that, you know, that we probably will be setting the precedent for the following boards, you know, and we took that very seriously, and that's why Elizabeth does a great job. She's so organized, unbelievable, you know. I'm glad she decided to be the secretary. But anyway, so, you know, so we set that precedent, and we took it very seriously, that's what he said, and that's what we're doing. And of course, we will follow the same thing as before. I think a month before we were elected, the proxies were mailed, and we told everyone, so that if you're not able to make it, but you're not going to the meeting, or that, you know, on that day, you can give it to your neighbor and say, hey, Chris, here's my proxy. This is the person that I want. You will check whoever you want, and then you sign it with your address and everything. You give it to Chris, because that's what we did. We brought a lot of proxies from our neighbors that gave it to us. You know, they were not attending the meeting. So that's
I think the big thing to remember about the transition going forward is, even if the whole board gets wiped out, our fault, their fault, nobody's fault, we all leave. A new board comes in. I still live in Almond Glen, still my neighborhood, still your neighborhood. 20% of us can come together and get rid of them. 20% of you could come together today, get rid of any member of the board that you don't want. And that's something to remember is ultimately don't feel powerless. You matter in every way. I know I matter, and I know I will matter in the future, whether I stay on the board or not. If the board is not doing what they're supposed to do, if they start ignoring things that you think they shouldn't be ignoring, we'll hold them accountable. Because it's our homeowner association. A lot of people will err in error. They will refer to the management company as the HOA, not the HOA. She's the manager. She doesn't manage the board. She's not in charge of us. She works very hard for us, or she will. She already is. And that's important to remember. Every board member up here is accountable because I go to the swimming pool and I hang out over there with my kid. And I certainly don't want somebody who's just completely angry at me. So I'm accountable to everybody here, and you should hold your next board accountable, whether it's all of us, a few different faces, or a whole new group. Hold them accountable. That's the most important thing to do. Be involved like all of you were today. That's how you make the transition work. Okay? Next up we have Virginia Cornish.
Actually, my question was answered amongst the
What was it anyway?
the rhetoric. It was just some of the question about how the dues are distributed and some of the repairs of the townhomes and all, not understanding, how that all works, but that kind of got answered through all that. Yeah.
Okay. And the most important thing to remember budget-wise is we have a set budget. We try very hard to follow it. Sydney and his crew put together a really solid budget for us. And then as the year goes on, we try to work along those lines, and the dues for a lot of it goes to reserves. A lot of it does. And then there's those big operating costs, and we'll just continue to try to find ways to drive those down. I mean, we put their feet to the fire. She watched us go through negotiations. For anybody who doesn't know, Chris is a contract guy. He examines contracts for a living, and we have heavily relied on that skill to cut contracts up, make sure that they are fair, balanced contracts, that we're not stuck in things that we can't get away from, and to make sure that our money is being spent well. It's my money. Every time we spend $1, everybody on this board thinks the same way. 295 divided by, we do the math. And it's important to us that the money gets spent properly.
But I do want to thank all y'all. I mean, the things that y'all have done, it's just phenomenal. Every time I go in there, I'm like, something new and exciting. So each one of y'all, thank you. And thank you to your spouses. I mean, I know the time, the spouses that are here, the time that y'all spend. Amen.
I was going to do a little unsung heroes at the unsung heroes of the neighborhood are definitely my wife Suzanne, Chris's wife Alicia, not that Alicia, different Alicia. Mix up your Alicias and Virginias. Dan, who is here.
Because we retire, we don't have small children, so it's kind of.
And John's wife.
Hard for us.
Dawn, John's wife
Say
Dawn.
happy birthday, it's her birthday.
And it is her birthday, and he's here.
You may not be married.
I would not be here. I would be with my wife right now. John's been told he can run whenever he needs to run, but he's been gracious enough to stick around.
And thank you to those committee people, because your spouses are by default on the committee too, probably.
You know that. We
My
planned for
husband is the
that.
best hot dog maker in Almond Glen.
Yeah, we don't see her husband very often, but it's because he's in the background doing a lot of great things for us, and we really appreciate everybody's involvement. Everybody who's here today. I mean, it really does. It makes the neighborhood better. I mean, I love it. I love that our neighborhood's nothing like the neighborhoods that I police. We're nothing like it. And Danielle can tell you, she sees a lot of neighborhoods. We're nothing like other neighborhoods, and there's a reason for it. It's the people that are here today, the people that participate in every way they can. Our last signed up speaker, Ms. Graham. I'm ready for you.
Kelly. I'm probably one of the very few townhome people here. Don't have a lot of interest apparently in the townhomes, but I have a whole list, but if you'll just do your secretary thing and take notes, that would be great, because I don't expect the answers for everything today. I do want to say thank you to everyone. You have done a really wonderful job, even from my naive perspective that I'm trying to keep to myself. And this one will go to the new management company. Is something going to be done about pending tickets with Lennar? Don't need to answer, just keep in mind that there's some out there.
What was it?
Pending like work order tickets and stuff that Lennar still hasn't completed. There are some for me at least. How can we identify things we don't want touched in our yards for the landscaping people. When you talk to new contractors and stuff, there may be some people like me who enjoy gardening and do some things on our own, and we don't want them to come in and just hack off our bushes. For the social committee, I would like to see some more adult-only things. That would be great. It's great. I love hearing about all the Easter egg hunts and things, but there are some times that maybe you just want to talk to adults. Is there, and then this is a big one, is there anything in the planning for this board or potentially next year's board to address the sewer issue? The fact that we're paying overcharges to pump our sewer through Pineville instead of Lancaster County, so I'm told. And I had mentioned to someone earlier the 7 traffic lights that showed up on the corner of Regent and Harrisburg happen to be right next to where I live. I've heard through the grapevine that they're talking about making that 5 lanes there, and that's a pretty big concern because that hill of grass that is a sound barrier as well as a nice place to walk your dog through the park area or let the kids play. You know, when you have relatives or whatever for the holidays, we've seen some kids out there playing. My concern is if they need to increase that road even 2 more lanes, they're going to start to eat up that barrier between our townhomes and Harrisburg Road. So that's a concern. Someone brought up about the street lights and the energy. I happen to know that Duke Energy is increasing their rates come next month, if you're not aware, you are now. Is there any way that some of the non-street lights, can be turned off at a certain hour, 10, 11, midnight or something, and those would be like, we have them in the townhouses in the parking areas. Might save some money. I just want to caution you on the perception of how often we hear that the townhomes are going to need repairs and how much that's going to cost and the budget that needs to go, because townhomes do pay an exorbitantly high amount of HOA dues. So while those expenses are coming, we are paying more towards those expenses. So I don't want the perception to be that this budget needs to pay for the townhomes, and people think, well, I'm not in the townhomes, why do I have to pay? So just caution you on how you bring that up, because when I sit here and I know I'm a townhome owner and I know I'm paying $130 some a month for those HOA dues, it's just something that kind of is bothersome when I hear it repetitively. Lastly, and this goes to show just the number of, or lack of number of townhome residents that are here, is there anything to consider having a maximum number of renters that can be in the townhome units as a whole? We seem to have a lot of renters, and not always, and I'm not saying it's the renters, but there's a lot of lack of caring because they don't have a vested interest. So I didn't know if that was something that could be addressed sometime, you know, whether or not we can put a cap on how many units can be rented out. Then the last thing is again about the dog pickup, and I appreciate everyone's efforts on trying to get people to pick up after their pets. But it's not just the townhome owners' pets who are leaving their pets' waste in the townhome areas. I've noted several occasions that people from the other side of the dumpster will walk their dogs over near the dumpster's grass area, let their dog do their thing, and walk away without it. So just kind of keep in mind that it's not just the pet owners in the townhomes that have that problem, it's other people walking through and being careless. So. That's all.
Alright.
Like I said,
What's
just
the first one?
keep notes on
Oh, I got
everything.
one here.
If it comes out, the answers in a newsletter or something like that,
Well,
that's fine.
some of these we can address right now, and I'll share the share the spotlight here for a few things. Pending tickets with Lennar. Yes, no, maybe. Here's what I would suggest. And the reason I say yes, no, maybe, everything that's coming over from Hawthorne will be transferred over. With that in mind, let's give them a fair shake at trying to get things sorted out. If you have things that you've asked to have done, we should already know about them. Anybody know about anything? Fail. That's all I can say to that. So I don't know of any pending repairs or requests at this time. So I would say let's start fresh.
Well, I'll forward you the emails from Lennar, and you'll have.
That's what I would ask. Let us start fresh with AMG. She's going to be trying to play some catch up with some things that are behind, and I don't want AMG to get the bad rap of, well, I told Hawthorne 6 months ago. Let's just assume that they didn't pass it on, that it didn't get done right, or it got lost. Maybe it was my fault. I mean, it could be the board lost something. So I would ask that you resubmit anything that you've got, or let us know about it so we can start fresh, because we're getting ready to do stuff with maintenance anyway. So let's go ahead and get on those as soon as we can. We might be able to make that stuff happen soon.
Protect the bushes from the landscapers.
Protecting the bushes from the landscapers. We're actually looking at that as part, and we have not agreed on it, so I can't give you an official answer on it, but I would tell you that the landscapers are responsible for the landscaping. Anything that you request, and I know specifically you requested is put some bushes out because I signed off on it. Anything that you put out is subject to getting chopped in the wrong way, and I hate to say it that way, but I don't want you to. There's no easy way to identify them. Now, what I will do is we can try to work with a landscaper. Any landscaper we've got coming in, we can easily talk with them and say, hey, can we find a way to identify bushes? They might have a way. They might put a little pink bow on them or something like that, something that you can figure out to work out with them. But there's no way for us to, by contract with them, differentiate between the rose bush that's not going to be trimmed and the hedge that is supposed to be trimmed.
No, I'm saying like the things that were installed when they finished the unit in the front, don't care. The stuff that I'm putting in the back, I care about.
And that's
for
yeah.
those people on the Eastwood side that have the fenced-in backyards, they can control that, because it's in there. Whereas the ones on the Lennar side, we don't have that luxury. We don't have fences.
And that's what I want to make sure I understand make sure I'm fully understanding the scope. How do we keep them from chopping up your bushes that you planted, right? I don't know, and I want to try to find a way to work that for you. But I can tell you by contract, they're supposed to take care of the landscaping. So if they come in and chop the wrong bush, the way things are right now, there's no way for them to differentiate between this bush is what I trim, this bush is what I don't. Now, like I say though, let's talk with the landscaper and let's see if we can identify a way that would be easy for them so that they can tell, whoever happens to be coming through and trimming the bushes, don't trim these bushes. So I'll work with them. We'll see what we can do for you. Maybe there's a little small fencing area. We can tell them don't touch that area or only do it. But we have to make sure it's even. And pretty much anybody who puts something out, they have to assume that there's no way for us to guarantee that, for instance, if we have somebody come out and paint, that they're not going to set up ladders and crush your prized petunias or something like that. So we're in kind of a weird area because I want the townhome owners to have the opportunity to put out their own flowers and everything like anybody else would, but we also have these service contracts that we have to fall within. So I'll do what I can to work with any townhome owner on that, and I know the board wants that, but we also have to understand that it's just the maintenance is the maintenance for the landscaping. So we'll do what we can to work with you and try to find a way that can work on that, and we'll work with the townhome committee to maybe come up with some options for that. What's the next one?
Adult social events.
Adult social events.
I can take that one.
Do you know about the lawsuit that I was going to mention real quick, and we'll go from there?
Oh, I'm not talking about that kind of adult. So.
Well, no, I know what you're saying, and I'll let her pick up from there. But we have to be careful what we do because there's a $30 million lawsuit that said two things: one, age discrimination, and two, anti-family lawsuit, and it's out west. Basically, a homeowners association established some adult-only swim times. That was the age discrimination, and they established a few parties that were considered to be anti-family because children were not allowed. So we have to be real careful what we do. We can set up events that are more tuned for families to maybe, oh, that sounds more like an event where I'd want just my wife and I would go to, and that'd be fun. But we can never say no children. because we have families. And, you know, I mean, if it's an event where it's probably tuned towards adults, I'm probably not going to bring my child, but we can never say no families, and we can never say adults only, because $30 million divided by 295, a lot of money. So, and we try to stay on the cusp of those kind of things, and that's one of the reasons we use a professional management company to give us those warnings. With that said, do you have something you want to add to it, or do you like crushing?
Well, I was just gonna say, if you could, like, even, everything seems to be Saturday, Sunday afternoon, you know, like something in an evening would probably.
And that's what I would think, and actually Alicia is she sees oversight for the social committee, so that's probably where she's going, that she has some thought process.
So yeah, Virginia, if she's still here, she brought this up end of last year as like voice of the community, like we need more stuff for, you know, singles, young adults, adults married with kids or whatnot. And as Rob stated, we would never have something that's sort of exclusive for one or the other, but what we can do is start to look at our committee, first of all, is more diverse. So we have people that, you know, I'm all about kids. If Chuck E. Cheese isn't involved, guess what? I'm not probably gonna do it or whatnot. So we have people that can help us bring ideas to the table. And everything doesn't have to be in the community or walk out your front door. We found out that you could go on, what was it, Carolina Panther Stadium, you could do a tour for $75 with 30 people. We could definitely arrange that and put people into different groups. We could do stuff in the evening. I probably won't be there in the middle of the week because I have a family and kids, but there are people on the board that may have more time because they don't have kids. So we're trying to look at things to balance it out, but we would never say no kids, no kids at an event, right? But we can do things where kids might be asleep because it's their bedtime, or probably people wouldn't take their kid to a karaoke bar or something like that, right? So we're looking at things that's on our roadmap. Can I tell you all the events right now? Absolutely not, because we haven't started planning, but once we do, we'll communicate it through all of our communication channels. And one of the other things is that we have a Survey Monkey account, and you've seen Rob send out some surveys. We want to do a survey too to understand, like, what do people want to do? We don't have all the answers, so we're not just going to sit in a vacuum and come up with stuff. We're going to actually poll you to get ideas as well.
The next thing was
Sewer bill.
sewer bill. John's going to try to address that for you.
All right, so I've been on the sewer bill for about 5 years. Originally, both the water and our sewer bills in Almond Glen was higher than other people paid in Lancaster County. And over time, what's happened is the water bills for the rest of the county has come up. Our Almond Glen water part of the bill hasn't been going up as fast. It's approximately the same now. So what we pay for the water part of our water bill is about the same as the rest of Lancaster County. The reason being, our water is now coming from Mecklenburg County, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg water. It's a little bit less expensive. It's getting billed though through Lancaster County Water and Sewer. So I'm counting that as a win. Although our water bill didn't go down, it's just not going up as fast, and now it's about the same. So that's about all we can ask for on the water part. A sewer bill. Probably we're paying at least $20 or $30 a month above what most people in Lancaster County pay for water and sewer, maybe more than that. Which is actually, it was a bigger difference prior. But there's 3 parts to that. Our sewer bill's higher because it's about 8 miles to pump our water uphill to the Lancaster County sewer system. There's no pipes. Let me go back to water for a minute. Let me just finish up the water part. Lancaster County has put down water pipes for the tap water. It's down to where that new bridge is right now. The bridge will be probably completed this year. When it is, we're actually not going to be having Charlotte-Mecklenburg water. They're just going to connect it up. We're actually going to have Lancaster County water coming into our house. They're going to bill it, and it's going to be Lancaster County water. Charlotte-Mecklenburg water will be disconnected. But that doesn't really affect us. We're not going to probably notice the change. Our bill won't change, so that'll be converted over. It's going to be a long time before our sewer gets connected to Lancaster County, and a real long time. There's got to be a bunch of developments put in between here and up by the new elementary school. The elementary school is actually connected to another development behind there. They put in their own sewer line down to connect there. It's miles of uphill for the sewer part. So right now what's going on, there's a study underway as we speak. Right now, the reason our bill is higher, I think that's probably the first question. because we're not connected to Lancaster County, our developer connected our sewer instead to Carolina Water Solutions. It's that processing center right on the other side of McAlpine Creek. You can see from Phase 3 development there. And they process primarily industrial wastewater for like manufacturers or industrial. They don't really care if we send our wastewater there or not. We can send it somewhere else, but we have to pay their industrial rate. And they're kind of concrete about that. They're not really wanting to talk about it, not negotiating it. The only thing that comes down, I've talked with them, they're like, well, send your wastewater somewhere else. They have all the capacity, they're at 100% capacity. If we don't send ours there, somebody else will. That's their rate, end of story. So that being said, right now, we're a couple months into a study. Lancaster Water and Sewer is actually doing a study with Charlotte-Mecklenburg. That's the big water processing center that you see behind BJ's Wholesale. There's a huge expansion going on there right now. They process about 60 million gallons of water a day. They're increasing their capacity to 80 million gallons per day. They're doing a study to see if they could accept the Almond Glen water, which is, you know, a tiny fraction of that. So by the end of this year, they're expecting that study to be completed. If it turns out that Charlotte-Mecklenburg has the capacity now and in the future to accept our wastewater, that's a win. Lancaster County Water and Sewer would then sponsor another study to see where to connect. But that's not as they're de-emphasizing the where to connect. They said if they'll let us send our wastewater to Charlotte-Mecklenburg, the where to connect, just a matter of a few months study and get it connected, take a few months to put down some pipes. Definitely won't be this year. It's actually definitely not a definite, but if both studies come back in the positive for us, maybe as early as 2015, our sewer can connect then to Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And at that point, because they charge so much less than the Carolina Water Solutions, our sewer bill will drop down to be approximately what everybody else in Lancaster County pays for. So that's where we are with that. And there's another idea floating around to be a more immediate solution to this, but hasn't really no traction yet. And that is, you know, if we complain and make a big enough stink and petition, Lancaster County would drop our rates and subsidize it with everybody else in the county. Yeah. That hasn't, they're not receptive to that so far, or maybe we haven't made enough noise. So that's where we are with the water and sewer part. Any other questions?
What was it?
Traffic light, 5 lanes.
The traffic lights, the 5-lane deal. I don't know what they're going to do with that. They didn't tell us they were going to put in the traffic light. They didn't tell us, other than the little piece that was in the Carolina Gateway, I think it was, talking about the traffic light will open up in the future. They said January, a couple days left, so maybe they're going to turn it on. I can tell you that Regent is still a private road. That's why it's as bumpy and messy as it is. It's a private road owned by some developments down through there, and it's owned by a declarant, which means a builder, so they don't care. They've been asked to put in a turn lane there multiple times, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know if that light's going to help traffic or not. My personal opinion, I think it's going to cause a mess.
There's 7 lights hanging there.
Yeah, it's going to be, you've got, anytime you got multiple lights, you've got your normal, you know, your red, yellow, green, and then you've got turn lanes built in there and stuff. So I think long term, I would expect, as a homeowner, my expectation is they're going to widen the road. There's 2 things that'll come into play. One, they've got an easement that eats into our property line there. You can go online. I'll put links to it on Nextdoor for people to know, but you can go online and you can pull up who owns every piece of property throughout the entire county. You can figure out who your neighbors are, and remember, you know, you can look at how much they paid for their house. All kinds of neat information's on there. And one of the things you can do, though, is you can see how far they already own. The cul-de-sacs, for instance, anybody who owns a house on a cul-de-sac, the street's the same way, but the cul-de-sacs are a neat way to look at it. If you go down and stand at the edge of my driveway, don't stand there for too long or I'll start looking at you, but go down there and stand at the edge of my driveway. You've got to walk an actual 5 or 6 feet before you're technically on my property. Before that, you're in the county easement. They actually own a larger chunk of that than most people realize. So same thing with all your homes. They don't actually start at the street. They start 10, 15 feet back at least. And they have also the ability to do eminent domain, which is something Chris and I were up here discussing. Eminent domain is where they come through and they just take your property. And there's always a potential something like that could happen. Now, obviously, if we start...
Take it, they have to pay for it, but they,
Right.
but you have to sell it.
We'll end up losing it.
Yeah.
Now, what we would do, obviously, is if anything major is happening in the county, and it's one of the reasons we're trying to form these partnerships with HOAs around us, I want to get to know the boards, and I want to form little links with them so we can negotiate better contracts, because we'll be talking for more people, so we can advertise our individual newsletters. We can send those advertisers out to more homes, charge more for those advertising costs, get more money into us. All those things play together. And one of the things that we have the power to do as citizens is, just like you guys come into this meeting today, we go to a council meeting. If I show up with a bunch of other Almond Glen residents and I tell them I represent 295 homes on the northern panhandle, it's just like you guys coming in and saying, I represent everybody on my street and we're mad at you. And it's a little better because they get paid. I don't. So we have the power as citizens to get involved. We have a lot of smart people in our community who know how to leverage those things, and that's what I would suggest we do going forward if we see things like that on the horizon. So the lights, I don't know how to change anything for that though. Was there another part to that question, or does that cover everything you're asking on that?
There's an assumption of widening Harrisburg Road.
Yeah, turn off some street lights.
Oh, the turn off the street lights thing? I don't know. That's a good thing to.
Lights, like these extra lights.
You're talking about the extra lights.
Because like, when you come in down Caperington, you know, there's lights, all along the street. But
Right.
if you go into the parking area for Lanark, there's at least 2 or 3 that are on all day, all night. And yeah, it's nice to come in and have some lighting to your door, but they really need to be on all of them on all night.
Yeah, and that's what I would say is we'd have to look at multiple things. As a police officer, my thing is more light is better. Criminals are like cockroaches. You flip a light on, they run and scurry away. So, like they're alluding to over there, I mean, they're really like cockroaches, for real, all the legs and everything. But you flip the lights on, they scurry away. So we would have to look at it. We're open to the idea, but we want to see what kind of lighting is actually adjusted. I don't want to kill lights and put somebody in the dark and their car gets broken into. It wouldn't necessarily. That's something we'd have to look at. She's asking if it be a liability. We'd have to look at it, though, is what I'd say.
The reason I brought it up was in connection with all the people who leave a light on all night in their front door anyway, so.
And that's what we do. We'd go out there. What I would say we'd probably try to do is look at shutting off some of those lights, seeing what happens, see how dark it is, getting input from the town homeowners since it would directly affect them. That's why we have a townhome committee, so we get them involved and just check that. In general, my initial response is to say more light is better, but at the same time, we're not opposed to taking a look at ways to save money, but we're also not going to just flip off all the lights and save a bunch of money at the same time. So, but we'll look into it. Is I guess the basic answer in the end for that.
Get townhome owners and renters involved.
There's 2 things I took from that. Getting town homeowners involved, the renters thing, and also the maintenance thing. Don't take me wrong, and I want to first start with this. Don't take me wrong when I bring up the townhomes and the fact they have maintenance issues. The town homeowners, exactly like you pointed out, pay a lot more money throughout the year. It's twice what the single-family homeowners pay. They pay monthly $130. A single-family homeowner pays $140 every quarter. So they're paying a lot more money. And it's because of things like the maintenance contracts and everything that are there. The reason I mention it so often is because I don't want you to be forgotten. There's 64 townhomes up there at the front. Everybody drives past them. Nobody pays attention to them. And I don't want them to become the redheaded stepchild. Sorry, Denise. The redheaded stepchildren of the neighborhood. We don't want to forget the town homeowners. And one of the things we're trying to do is find ways to draw them in. Denise has been working hard with me. I've been trying to get everybody on Nextdoor to get you guys involved more. But
I'm not even on Facebook.
I know.
I don't even have texting on my cell phone, so it's going to be a hard sell.
1985 called. Catch up. No, I want to get you guys involved though. I want to get you guys involved. I want to find ways to involve you, and that includes renters. A lot of times when you go into a homeowners association, you do find that the renters, maybe they don't necessarily. I know that the feeling is that they don't feel connected, so they don't care. A lot of our renters are future homeowners, Renters are allowed, as far as we're concerned, as a board, to participate in every single thing as far as the association, up to the board. They can't participate in the board, and that's just the way our bylaws are outlined. But a renter is just important to me as a homeowner because they live in our neighborhood and they have input. So we want to find ways to get them involved, and you live in the townhome, so you talking to your neighbors will hopefully affect them. I know you've got a neighbor right next to you who's not too involved, and I'd love them to get involved because we need their input. Like I said, renters are our future owners. I don't want them to think that our perception of them is they don't really own, so they don't care. I think they do care for the most part. Those townhomes aren't cheap to rent, so we don't have subsidized housing in there or something like that. So, and as far as limiting the number, Eastwood threw out as just one of their things that they say that there was going to be a cap at one point. It was never in the declaration, so the only way to cap the number of renters would be to change the declaration to amend it. You need 75% of the homeowners to do it. I don't know that it's a good idea, though. I would caution against it. Danielle can maybe give input and experience in that.
What percentage of them are being rented out? Because I bet 50–60% of them are probably rented out.
I would guess that much, but we don't know, honestly, because Denise and I have been trying to figure it out, and the only way to find out is to basically go knock on a door and talk to people. Getting people to the door is really difficult sometimes. So I don't know how many people are currently renting in the neighborhood altogether. I can tell you that we have 2 homes in the neighborhood that are owned by a nationwide rental company. Then we also have several homes in the neighborhood that are being rented as just part of, the way they've done it. I don't want to take away somebody's ability to turn their property into an investment property, and that's why I would warn against it. I don't think we'll ever reach a time when there'll be more renters in the neighborhood than there are people who own. I think it's important also to remember, let's say the townhomes get to the point where they're 99% renters. And the fear would be from a townhome owner, I know I'd be afraid, that nobody's going to listen to me now because I'm the only one that even owns over here. They don't care about me. When we were doing things like looking at switching up the way we were going to do the garbage over there was like 2% of the people who pushed back and said, I don't want it. That's the only part we listened to. Who cares about the 99 or the 98% who said, I want this? What's important is the 2% who say, I don't want it, because we want to know why don't they want it. So that'll always be the way that this board operates, and hopefully future boards will operate. It's a standard you should hold every board to. 99% are on board, great. What's the 1%'s problem? In the case of the change up for the valet style trash, that 2% had some really good points that swayed the board's decision. So don't let your renters feel like they're the redheaded stepchildren of the neighborhood. Let them know that they're important too. Encourage them to participate. Invite them to come out. We had a lot of success in our past things where we've had neighbors going out and actually saying, hey, come on down. Because people are always more comfortable when they know people. So get the neighbors and get the renters involved. I don't know that this time that we'll ever cap it. Like I said, it's a big vote. So did I hit all the points?
No, it's dog poop.
Yeah, the last question was the dog poop thing. It's a nationwide problem. At every single, I think it adds to it when you have townhomes and things like that, because we've got these common areas where people do that. We'll keep demanding and encouraging pet owners to clean up after their dogs. Denise has pointed out she's actively involved in all kinds of things with dog rescue and things like that, so she's more involved than some. Dog poop's not fertilizer, doesn't help the grass, it actually hurts the grass. Direct quote, right? So we'll keep encouraging people to clean up. We've looked at things like cleanup stations, but we're trying to figure out the cost effectiveness of them. The guy who opens up the door, lets a dog run out and do his business and then run back inside is not going to start cleaning up because there's a bag station out there all of a sudden. That's not it. Some of it may just be awareness. Some people just don't get it that they're supposed to clean up, believe it or not. So we'll continue to try to encourage people to do it. There's things that we can do as an association to enforce those rules. And we're going to put that information in the rule book that we're putting together. But I don't know a good way to fix it, because if I knew the best way to fix it, I could make a lot of money nationwide right now, and Danielle would probably hire me. She'd have to pay for my special idea. So I don't know the best way to fix that. Is there anything else left in that?
That's the whole thing.
Did we hit on all of them? Okay. We've still got a little bit of time left before we're going to do our board meeting, and we can move right into that. But is there any other just individual questions that popped up? Anybody's got something? If you're thinking it, and I'll get you in a second, but if you're thinking it, somebody who's gonna watch this later is gonna be thinking the same thing, so please throw it out there. Justin Swoop.
I know it hasn't been a problem as late, but with it getting as cold as it is, I know that there was an issue with Lancaster Gas being able to pump a sufficient amount of gas up to our neighborhood to keep our heat furnaces running. Has anybody heard anything? Everybody's looking at me like I don't know what they're talking about.
My furnace
Yeah, I'm
is
woken up
like-
at 3 in the morning and been like, what is happening?
Because Chris made the mistake of indicating that he might have some knowledge, I'm gonna make him talk about it.
Okay.